never meant to find them. The messages were buried in his email drafts folder, not even sent, just stored away like secrets in a vault he thought I'd never open. It was a Tuesday evening in April, when our life together changed forever. Rain tapped against our bedroom window as I sat cross-legged on our bed, using James's laptop to check our joint bank account while he showered. My finger slipped on the trackpad, and suddenly I was staring at dozens of unsent messages to someone named Ellie. The first few lines froze my blood. I can't stop thinking about yesterday, the way you looked at me across the conference room table. I shouldn't have continued reading, but my eyes moved of their own accord, consuming words that weren't meant for me. Words of desire, of future plans, of complaints about our marriage, our 15 years together reduced to an obstacle in these digital love letters. James walked in, hair still damp, humming some tune I didn't recognize. He stopped when he saw my face. "Kate, what's wrong?" I turned the laptop toward him. His expression crumbled in slow motion. First confusion, then recognition, finally a terrible understanding. He reached for words, but found none. "Who is she?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. "It's not what you think," he said, the most predictable line in the history of affairs. "Really? Because I think you've been sleeping with someone from work while telling her our marriage is practically over." The calm in my voice surprised me. Inside, I was screaming. He sat heavily on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. "Ellie's new in marketing. It just happened." "Things don't just happen, James. You made choices. Every single day you chose her." Our children slept just down the hall. Lily, 14, with her father's eyes, and Ben, 11, with his laugh. Did he think about them during his afternoon rendezvous? Did he consider what this would do to our family? "How long?" I asked. 3 months. He stared at his hands. "I was going to end it. Were you also going to tell me? Or were these draft emails as close as you planned to get to honesty?" He had no answer for that. The rain fell harder outside, filling the silence between us. I thought about the life we'd built. The house in suburban Boston we'd renovated room by room, the vacations to Cape Cod, the Christmas card photos where we smiled like we had it all figured out. Had it all been a lie? Or just the recent parts? "I need you to leave," I said finally. "Tonight. Kate, please. We can work through this. People make mistakes. This wasn't dropping a glass or forgetting an anniversary, James. You created a whole separate life and hid it from me. What else don't I know?" The numbness was wearing off, anger rising to take its place. He tried to touch my arm, but I flinched away. "Don't. Just don't." I watched him pack a bag with mechanical movements. Socks, underwear, shirts. The everyday items of a life suddenly derailed. He paused at the dresser, looking at our wedding photo. I wondered if he was feeling regret or relief. "What will you tell the kids?" he asked. "The truth. A version of it anyway. That you made choices that hurt our family, and we need time apart." He nodded, defeated. "I do love you, Kate. I know that sounds impossible right now, but it's true." "You're right," I said. "It does sound impossible." After he left, I sat in the silent house, listening to the rain and the occasional car passing on our wet street. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I went to check on my children, watching their peaceful sleep, wondering how I would find the words to break their hearts tomorrow. Standing in the doorway of Lily's room, I made a silent promise to myself and to them. Whatever happened next, I would face it with dignity. I wouldn't let James's betrayal define me or them. This wasn't the end of our story, just the end of the version I thought we were living. Morning came with brutal clarity. I'd spent the night alternating between rage and disbelief, pacing our bedroom and staring at those damning email drafts until I knew them by heart. When my alarm went off, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Eyes swollen, skin pale, a new hardness around my mouth. The kids knew something was wrong the moment they came downstairs. The kitchen felt different without James making his coffee, telling his terrible dad jokes. Lily looked at me with suspicion as she poured her cereal. "Where's Dad?" Ben asked, glancing toward the garage door. I took a deep breath. "Sit down, both of you." I need to tell you something important. They exchanged looks as they settled at the kitchen island. Our bright yellow kitchen, my pride and joy after the renovation last year, suddenly felt like a stage set, too cheerful for the scene unfolding. Your father is staying with Uncle Mike for a while, I began, my rehearsed speech dissolving. We're having some problems in our marriage. What kind of problems? Lily's voice was sharp. At 14, she was too perceptive for vague explanations. Dad made some choices that hurt our family, I said, using the words I'd practiced in the shower. He's been seeing someone else. Ben's face crumpled in confusion. Like another mom? The innocence of his question broke something in me. No, honey. Not another mom. Just someone from his work that he shouldn't have been spending time with. He cheated on you, Lily stated flatly. Her eyes flashed with anger. Not at me, but at the situation. At him. That's what you're saying, right? I nodded, watching my daughter process this adult betrayal. Yes. Is he coming back? Ben asked, his voice small. I don't know yet, I admitted. We need some time to figure things out. I hate him, Lily declared, pushing away from the counter. How could he do this to us? I reached for her hand. Your dad loves you both very much. This is between him and me. It doesn't change how he feels about you. That's stupid, she spat. He wrecked our whole family. Of course it changes things. She stormed upstairs, slamming her bedroom door. Ben stayed, looking lost, his Spider-Man cereal bowl forgotten. Is this my fault? He whispered. Because I've been bad at math and Dad's been mad about my grades? I pulled him into a fierce hug. No. This has nothing to do with you. Grown-ups make their own mistakes, Ben. Big ones sometimes. This is your dad's mistake, not yours. The day crawled by in a fog. I called in sick to the elementary school where I taught 3rd grade. I couldn't face 30 children when I could barely keep myself together. I let Ben stay home too, sensing he needed the security of having me nearby. James called mid-morning. I stepped onto the back porch to take it, away from Ben's ears. How are they? His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't slept either. How do you think? Confused, hurt, angry. Lily won't speak to me now. Ben thinks he's somehow responsible. James made a pained sound. God, Kate. I'm so sorry. Can I talk to them? Not today. Give them some space. I watched a cardinal land on our bird feeder, its bright red a shock against the gray day. They need time to process this before you try to explain yourself. And you? Can we talk about what happens next? I laughed, a brittle sound. What happens next is I try to keep our children from falling apart while you figure out if your marketing department fling was worth destroying your family for. That's not fair. I made a terrible mistake, but don't talk to me about fair. I cut him off. You don't get to decide what's fair anymore. After hanging up, I sat on the porch steps, finally allowing myself to cry. Not the dramatic sobs I'd expected, but quiet tears that felt like grief for something already dead. That evening, Lily emerged from her room and silently helped me make dinner. We moved around each other in the kitchen, a familiar dance now missing a partner. When the doorbell rang, she tensed. It's just pizza, I assured her. I couldn't face cooking. Over pepperoni slices and awkward silence, Ben finally asked the question hanging over us. Are you getting divorced? I met my children's eyes. One pair accusatory, one pleading. I don't know yet, but whatever happens, we're going to be okay. Different maybe, but okay. Promise? Ben asked. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Promise. Later, after they'd gone to bed, I sat in our darkened living room with a glass of wine I couldn't taste, scrolling through photos on my phone. Our family vacation last summer. James teaching Ben to fish. Lily's middle school graduation with James's arm around my waist. We looked so solid, so certain. Had he been thinking of her even then? The text came just before midnight. I miss you all. This isn't what I want. I didn't reply. I wasn't sure what I wanted either, except for the pain squeezing my chest to ease enough that I could breathe again. 3 weeks passed in a blur of forced normalcy. I returned to teaching, plastering on smiles for my students while feeling hollowed out inside. The kids settled into an uneasy routine of weekdays with me, weekends with James at Mike's apartment. Lily refused to speak to her father beyond monosyllabic answers. Ben tried too hard to make everyone happy, his small shoulders carrying a weight no 11-year-old should bear. May brought unseasonable warmth and a cascade of end-of-year activities. Ben's baseball games, Lily's chorus concert, parent-teacher conferences where James and I sat at opposite ends of tiny chairs, avoiding eye contact while discussing our children's progress with strangers. I was gardening when she arrived. Digging in the soil had become my therapy, the only time my racing thoughts quieted. I was planting tomato seedlings, dirt under my fingernails, sweat on my brow, when a shadow fell across the garden bed. "Are you Kate?" I looked up, squinting against the sun. A woman stood on our garden path, slender, with shoulder-length dark hair and nervous hands. Recognition hit me like a physical blow. I'd seen her picture on LinkedIn when I'd searched Ellie and James's company in a late-night stalking session. "You must be the marketing department," I said, slowly standing. Anger surged through me, hot and electric. "You have exactly 5 seconds to get off my property." She flinched, but didn't retreat. "Please, I need to talk to you. It's important. Nothing you have to say could possibly matter to me." I pulled off my gardening gloves with sharp movements. "Did James send you?" Because that would be a new low, even for him. "No, God, no. He has no idea I'm here." She glanced nervously at the house. "Are your kids home?" The mention of my children from her lips sent rage coursing through me. "Don't you dare speak about my kids. You don't get to be concerned about them." "I'm not here to cause more pain," she said quietly. "I'm here because you deserve the truth." Something in her tone made me pause. She looked different from the confident woman in her profile picture. Smaller somehow, with dark circles under her eyes and a tremor in her hands. 5 minutes, I said finally. "Not in my house. We can sit on the porch." We settled on opposite ends of the porch swing. I noticed she wore no makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Not the polished temptress I'd imagined destroying my marriage. "I ended it," she started. "With James, a week ago." "Congratulations," I said flatly. "Was ruining my family enough excitement for you?" She winced. "I deserve that. But there's something you need to know. James. He told me he was separated when we met. He said you had agreed to divorce but were waiting until summer because of the kids' school year." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "He had a whole story, how you'd grown apart, were sleeping in separate rooms. He even showed me an apartment he claimed to be renting." She twisted her hands in her lap. I swear I would never have gone near him if I'd known he was lying. My mind raced backward through the past months. January, February, March. The late nights at work. The weekend client emergencies. The new cologne I didn't recognize. All while we still shared meals, a bed, a life. "Why are you telling me this now?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Because last week I ran into Mike, James's brother, at a coffee shop. He mentioned how hard James's separation was, but how it had only been a few weeks." She looked at me directly for the first time. That's when I realized everything was a lie. I confronted James and he admitted it. Said he would leave you eventually. That's when I ended it. Nausea rose in my throat. The level of deception was staggering. Not just an affair, but an elaborate fiction constructed to facilitate it. "There's more," she said softly. "I'm not the first. When I was breaking things off, he mentioned someone named Sarah from accounting. Last year. The name hit me like a physical blow. Sarah had come to our Christmas party, had stood in my kitchen drinking my mulled wine while looking at my husband with hidden knowledge. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, though a sick certainty was already settling in my stomach. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "These are texts from James. I took screenshots before deleting everything. You'll see the dates, the lies about your marriage, about you." I stared at the phone she offered but couldn't bring myself to take it. "Keep it. I've seen enough evidence to last a lifetime." She nodded and stood to leave. At the steps, she paused. "I'm sorry. I know that means nothing, but I am. He's not who either of us thought he was." After she left, I sat motionless on the swing, watching bees move between the peonies I'd planted the first spring we lived here. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "Pick up the kids at 6? Thought we could talk after." A strange calm settled over me. Yes, we would talk, but not the conversation he was expecting. I went inside and called my sister in Connecticut, then my lawyer. By the time I needed to collect Lily and Ben, I had a plan forming. One that didn't include giving James another chance to construct convenient fictions about our life. That evening, as I watched my children climb out of their father's car in our driveway, laughing at something he'd said, I felt a pang of sadness for what they were about to lose. Not just their family as they knew it, but their unwavering trust in their father. Some innocence would end tonight, but the lies had to stop, even if truth was the more painful path forward. I waited until the kids were asleep before texting James to come over. Each minute that passed felt like tiny weights being added to my shoulders, but I needed this final conversation to happen away from Lily and Ben's ears. They had already lost too much innocence. He arrived just after 9, wearing the navy sweater I'd given him for his birthday last year. The familiarity of him standing in our entryway made my chest ache. This man I'd loved for 16 years, the father of my children, now a stranger constructed of lies. Thanks for letting me come by, he said, hovering awkwardly in the living room. I've been thinking about us, and I really believe we can work through this if... Sarah from accounting, I interrupted. His face went slack. What? And who knows how many others? I kept my voice low, mindful of the children upstairs. Your girlfriend paid me a visit today. Ellie. Seems she was under the impression we were already separated when you started sleeping with her. The color drained from his face. Kate, don't. I held up my hand. I'm not interested in more lies. I've had a lifetime's worth from you already. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red-rimmed. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, James? You construct an elaborate fiction about our marriage being over, seduce a woman at work, all while coming home to me and our children. Were you planning to maintain 2 separate lives indefinitely? I was confused, he said weakly. Unhappy. Then you talk to your wife. You go to counseling. You don't systematically dismantle your family's trust while pretending everything is fine. My voice shook, despite my efforts to stay calm. And Sarah? When was that? Last year? He looked away. It was just a few times. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me. The words burst out louder than I intended. I took a deep breath. It meant my husband was living a double life while I was planning our 15th anniversary party. A heavy silence settled between us. Outside, a car drove by, its headlights briefly illuminating the room before plunging us back into the soft glow of the single lamp I'd left on. I've called Laura, I said finally, referring to my sister. The kids and I are going to stay with her for a while in Connecticut. His head snapped up. You can't take my children away. I'm not taking them away. I'm giving us all some space from this toxic situation. My lawyer says, You've talked to a lawyer? Panic edged into his voice. This afternoon. He'll be contacting you about the separation agreement. The word separation felt strange on my tongue, like a foreign language I was just learning to speak. James stood suddenly. This is moving too fast. You're angry. You have every right to be. But we need to think about the kids. I am thinking about the kids, I said quietly. I'm thinking about what kind of example I set if I stay with a man who repeatedly lies and cheats. What message that sends to Lily about what she should accept from men in her life. What it teaches Ben about integrity. So that's it? 16 years of marriage just over? I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt an unexpected wave of pity. You ended our marriage the first time you decided to lie instead of talking to me. Everything since has just been living with the consequences of that choice. He tried a different approach, his voice softening. Kate, I love you. Despite everything, I do. We built this life together. Remember when we first saw this house? How you cried because you could already see our kids growing up here? The memory stung, but not as sharply as I expected. The problem isn't that I don't remember the good times, James. It's that I can't trust that any of it was real for you. Of course it was real. Was it? Because the man I thought I married wouldn't have created elaborate lies to sleep with women from his office. He wouldn't have shown another woman an apartment and claimed to be living there, all while sharing my bed. I wrapped my arms around myself. I don't know who you are anymore. His face crumpled, and for a moment, I glimpsed genuine remorse. But it was too late for that to matter. "We leave on Sunday," I said. "You can see the kids tomorrow to explain that we're going to visit Aunt Laura for a while. Keep it simple. They don't need to know the extent of your deceptions." He nodded, defeated. "And us? There is no us anymore, James." The words hurt to say, but they also carried a strange relief, the relief of finally speaking a truth we'd both been avoiding. There's just you and your choices, and me and mine. After he left, I stood in the quiet house listening to the distant sound of a train whistle. Somewhere people were in motion, leaving one place for another. Soon we would be too. Laura's guest cottage sat at the edge of her property, nestled among silver maples that rustled in the constant coastal breeze. It was small, just 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and an open kitchen living area. But it felt like a sanctuary. The kids and I arrived on a Sunday afternoon in late May, the car packed with suitcases and the few treasured items we couldn't bear to leave behind. "It's not forever," I reminded them as we carried boxes inside. "Just until things settle." Lily had been unnervingly quiet during the 3-hour drive from Boston. Now she surveyed the cottage with teenage skepticism. "This place is tiny." "It's cozy," I corrected gently. "And it's right by the water." Ben had already claimed the bedroom with bunk beds, bouncing on the bottom mattress. "Can I have the top bunk, please?" "It's all yours, buddy." I ruffled his hair, grateful for his resilience. "Want to help Aunt Laura set up the badminton net later?" He nodded eagerly, already adapting to our new reality with a flexibility I envied. Lily disappeared into the second bedroom, closing the door with a decisive click. Laura appeared at the cottage door with a casserole and a bottle of wine. My older sister by 6 years. She had the same dark curly hair as me but wore hers shorter, framing a face lined with the wisdom of her 50 years, and a divorce of her own a decade earlier. "The kids okay?" she asked, setting the food on the counter. "Ben's adjusting, Lily's—" I gestured toward the closed door. "Processing," Laura finished for me. "She'll come around. Teenagers are resilient even when they pretend not to be." That first week passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I filed for a leave of absence from my teaching position, spoke with my lawyer about separation terms, and enrolled the kids in the local summer programs. James called daily, his conversations with the children stilted and brief. With me, he alternated between contrition and frustration. "This isn't necessary," he insisted during one call. "We could be working this out at home. This isn't about convenience, James. It's about space to think clearly. The house feels empty without you all. You should have considered that before you started living a double life," I replied, surprised by the lack of venom in my voice. The distance was already doing its work, giving me perspective I couldn't find in the familiar rooms of our home. June arrived with sunshine that coaxed us outdoors. Laura's property stretched down to a small private beach, where the kids and I spent evenings collecting shells and watching the tide. Ben made friends with the neighbor's son, while Lily gradually emerged from her shell, joining Laura's book club and helping in her garden. I found unexpected peace in routine. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks along the shore, evenings reading beside the kids as they did summer assignments or played games. The constant knot in my stomach began to loosen. I slept through the night for the first time since discovering James's betrayal. My 40th birthday arrived in mid-June. I'd been dreading it, this milestone I was supposed to celebrate with James by my side. Instead, Laura organized a small gathering on the beach. Just us, the kids, and a few of her friends I'd grown close to. We grilled fish, drank cold wine, and watched the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. As Ben and Lily chased each other along the shoreline, Laura handed me a small wrapped box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a compass. "To remind you that you know your own way forward," she said, clasping it around my wrist. "Even when the path isn't clear." I hugged her fiercely, overcome with gratitude for this sister who had always been my touchstone. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I sat alone on the beach with my thoughts and the distant rhythm of waves. My phone lit up with a text from James. "Happy birthday, Kate. I miss you all. The house is so quiet." I started to type a response, then stopped. What was there to say? That I was finding myself again in this quiet cottage by the sea? that the children were healing in ways they couldn't have at home, that I didn't miss the knot of anxiety that had lived in my chest for months before I even discovered his betrayal. Instead, I set the phone aside and looked up at the vast canvas of stars. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to imagine a future, one I was building on my own terms. I thought about the local elementary school that had reached out about a possible teaching position for fall, about the small house for rent in town that Laura had mentioned, about the art class Lily wanted to take, and the sailing lessons Ben had been begging for. It wasn't the future I had planned, but standing on the threshold of it no longer felt like stepping into an abyss. It felt like possibility. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him to proceed with the divorce papers. No more separation, no more limbo. It was time to make official what had been true for longer than I'd been willing to admit. My marriage was over, but my life wasn't. When I told the children over breakfast, Ben asked anxiously, "Does this mean we're never going home?" I reached for his hand across the table. Home isn't a place, honey. It's us. You, me, and Lily. And we're making a new one here. Lily, surprisingly, nodded in agreement. "I like it better here anyway," she said, passing the syrup to her brother in a small gesture of solidarity that made my heart swell. The divorce proceedings moved with surprising efficiency. By August, most of the details had been hammered out through lawyers. Custody arrangements, division of assets, child support. James didn't fight me on the major points, a small mercy I hadn't expected. Perhaps guilt was a powerful motivator, or perhaps he was simply eager to move on with his life. I tried not to wonder if Ellie was still in the picture, or if someone new had taken her place. We'd found a small Cape-style house to rent in town, just 3 blocks from the elementary school, where I'd accepted a position teaching 4th grade. Lily had enrolled in the local high school, reluctantly excited about their strong arts program. Ben had made a baseball team and talked endlessly about his new friends. We were putting down roots, tentative though they might be. I hadn't seen James in person since the night I told him we were leaving. He'd made 2 trips to Connecticut to visit the kids, but I'd arranged to be elsewhere, still too raw for face-to-face interaction. But now, with school starting and the final divorce papers needing signatures, a meeting was unavoidable. We agreed to meet at a cafe in town, neutral territory where neither of us would have home court advantage. I arrived early, claiming a corner table and ordering herbal tea to calm my jittery nerves. When he walked in, the sight of him hit me with unexpected force, familiar yet strange, like running into someone from a half-remembered dream. He looked thinner, his usually clean-shaven face sporting a short beard that aged him. His eyes found mine across the room, and a complicated expression crossed his features. Relief, anxiety, something like longing. "Kate," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look good." It wasn't a line. I did look good, tanned from summer days at the beach, my hair lighter from the sun, my body stronger from swimming and carrying moving boxes. Most importantly, the constant tension that had lived in my shoulders for months had eased. "Thanks," I said simply. "How was your drive down?" We made stilted small talk until the waitress took his order. Then, with coffee between us like a buffer, we turned to business. "I've reviewed the final agreement," he said. "Everything looks fair." I nodded, pulling the folder from my bag. "My lawyer suggested we both sign today. Then she'll file everything next week." His hand trembled slightly as he took the pen I offered. "And that's it? 16 years, done with a signature?" "The marriage ended long before today, James." I kept my voice steady. "We're just making it official." He signed slowly, deliberately, as if giving himself time to change his mind. When he finished, he didn't immediately slide the papers back to me. "I miss them," he said quietly. "The kids. The weekend visits aren't enough." "I know, but they're settling in here. They need stability right now." He looked up at me, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I miss you too." The words hung between us, unwelcome and uncomfortable. Once they would have moved me. Now they felt like one more attempt to rewrite our history. "Don't," I said firmly. "You don't get to say that after everything." "It's still true." He passed the papers back to me. "I know I ruined things. I know I can't fix it. But I need you to know that I regret it. All of it. Not just getting caught." I studied his face, looking for the deception I'd become so adept at missing. But all I saw was a broken man facing the consequences of his choices. "I believe you," I said finally. "But it doesn't change anything." "I know." He glanced around the cafe, then back to me. "The house sold. Over asking price. Your half of the proceeds should be in your account by the end of the month." Our home of 12 years, gone just like that. I'd expected to feel grief, but instead found only a vague nostalgia, like looking at photos from a vacation taken long ago. "What will you do now?" I asked, surprising myself with genuine curiosity. "I took a position in Chicago. Fresh start." He hesitated. "I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did." I nodded, unsure how to respond. Did I wish him well? Thank him for seeking help? In the end, I simply said, "I hope you find your answers." We finished our drinks in silence that was almost companionable. As we stood to leave, he asked, "The kid said you're dating someone?" I laughed, genuinely surprised. "I'm not. Lily must have misunderstood. I've made friends. One happens to be a man who helped us move furniture. But no, I'm not ready for that." He looked relieved, then embarrassed by his relief. "Sorry, not my business anymore." "No," I agreed. "It's not." Outside the cafe, standing in the August sunshine, we faced each other one last time as husband and wife. In a parallel universe, this might have been us meeting for lunch on a summer day, heading home afterward to our children and our shared life. The thought didn't sting as much as it once would have. "Goodbye, James," I said, extending my hand in a formal gesture that felt right for the moment. He took it, his familiar touch now just the clasp of a stranger. "Take care of yourself, Kate." I watched him walk to his car. This man I had once built a life around. There was sadness, yes, but also a surprising lightness. The final thread had been cut. I was free, not just legally, but emotionally. That evening, I sat on the porch of our rental house, watching Ben race his bike up and down the sidewalk, while Lily sketched the neighbor's garden. My phone buzzed with a text from Laura. "All done?" "All done," I replied. Then, after a moment's reflection, added, "And all beginning." Because that's what this was, I realized. Not an ending, but the first page of a new chapter, one where I was both author and protagonist. The story ahead was unwritten, the possibilities endless. For the first time in months, the thought filled me not with dread, but with a quiet, determined hope.